In Bristol, Anne and Erica are on the hunt for tobacco smugglers.
This is the Dalaman flight coming from Turkey, currently not in the EU, and the allowance for that is only 200 cigarettes.
Tobacco is now so highly taxed, the black market is booming, and nearly 1 in 5 cigarettes smoked in the UK is illegal, either counterfeit or smuggled in illegally, avoiding UK duty.
We'll be looking for anything over about 400 really at the moment, like possibly the one that just went through, and that looked like it did have quite a few in that one. So
Joe stops the passenger, whose attempt to dodge duty looks set to end in tears.
Right, basically we've got a female passenger who's come in from Turkey, and she's got 1,800 cigarettes. So what I'm going to do today is seize 1,600 cigarettes off her and give her back 200 as a statutory allowance. I'm not sure how she'd take it. I don't think she'd be too happy, but I don't think she'd be angry. I think she'd be more upset, which is harder usually. Don't mind a bit of anger, but it's just when they cry, which is a bit difficult. As you know, you are over the allowance. The allowance is 200, okay? On this occasion, I'm going to give you the 200 allowance back. That's all I can do. I can't do anything more than that, I'm afraid.
So I've just spent all that money on nothing?
Sorry?
I've just spent all that money on nothing?
Well, I'm afraid there's not really a lot more I can do.
Can I have 400 now?
Sorry? No, you can only have the statutory allowance. I'm afraid just 200. Gives me no pleasure to seize these cigarettes. This is when this amount, I have no choice, I'm afraid. Okay?
Give you no pleasure to stop.
Okay.
And I just knew, I had a feeling when it pulled through nothing to declare, I thought, uh-oh, he's got me. I could just see the gleam in his eye.
I generally felt bad because, although I believe she knew what the allowances were, I still think for anyone it's still difficult to have money taken from you.
The passenger seems surprised, but it turns out Joe has caught a regular offender.
I've got away with it for about 9 years. Well, I shouldn't have said that because he's just behind me there.
It may be a small seizure, but replacing the cigarettes will cost the passenger hundreds of pounds. In Gatwick, the X-ray has picked up a bag with some suspicious contents. It's put back on the carousel while Calvin watches from a distance to identify the bag's owner. The passenger's girlfriend is walking ahead, a tactic often used by smugglers to avoid detection. Calvin follows the passenger through the channels, where the Class A drugs dog Rossi gives an indication on the same blue bag. The questions asked by the officers are seemingly obvious, but the answers given can be used to build up a prosecution if anything's found.
So this is all your baggage? Is all your baggage, sir? Yeah, and these are bags you took out with you? Yeah. Has anybody given either anything to bring into this country? Okay, just have a quick look in the blue bag then. Yeah, just the blue one, is it? We'll start with that one. We'll start with that one. Always start with the bottom one. Do you know what this is? Don't touch it. Okay, apply booze to be charged.
The suitcase is full of sealed packages, which look like cannabis. The couple are arrested immediately.
Not meant to when questioned, something which later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you both understand? Do you understand? Is that yes? Do you understand? Yeah? Okay. Right, let's take out the back now.
Cannabis is a Class C drug, but a quantity like this is worth thousands of pounds, so the investigation starts immediately. And Calvin needs to make sure the right people feel the full force of the law.
Between 10 and 15, probably. There's probably more than 15 kilos. I mean, obviously we'll have to spike it first and test it to establish, do a field test to establish what the drug is. I'm making an assumption at the moment it's cannabis. Okay, and he'll explain your legal rights.
Whatever the packages contain, it's not looking good for this suspect.
Move your cards, okay?
Off the coast of Cornwall, customs cutter Searcher is waiting for orders.
We just had some intelligence come in. Basically, they found a length of rope with an anchor. There's nothing to say it's what it is, what it's for, but the locals have never seen it before. They don't know what it's about. They've handed it into customs and said, we think there's something a bit iffy about that. This is a very old way of smuggling. It's actually putting things in the bottom and putting it in a buoy and actually hanging it off the rope. It's been doing it here for hundreds of years with brandy in the old days, but it's happened before with drugs. Okay, full speed, Kyle, as we can.
Searcher's crew man the vessel 24 hours a day, ready to respond to any threat to the UK's borders.
It's assessments, huh?
With over 5,000 drug seizures a year, the threat's very real, and smugglers use any tricks they can to slip through the net.
We're looking at there. Just the green flag.
There's another 3 there. There's another 1 there. So the whole place is full.
It costs millions to operate these high-powered vessels with their onboard speedboats, but they're at war with well-financed criminal gangs who can make millions from a single importation and are willing to protect their profits with force.
We've still got light. We won't have it for much longer. So we'll have to be as quick as we possibly can here to try and get this job done.
Have you seen any pots that you don't recognise? Yeah.
Local fishermen are a good source of information, and there have been unusual pot markers sighted in the area.
There's a dead body on the end of this. I'm not going to be happy.
In the failing light, the officers check as many markers as they can.
Good.
It's a real one, isn't it?
Yeah. There's one back here as well. There's one more, Woody. This might be the golden nugget. A few little pots in there. What did you say? What do you reckon?
Going back in, I reckon.
Yeah.
Not all operations end with a seizure, and Kirsty hopes the intelligence gathered here may prove valuable in catching future smugglers.
So what we'll do, we'll actually pass that information back inland, and we'll pass it back to intelligence to see whether they can match it with any other activity that's been going on, and potentially keep an eye on that area just to make sure that we know where to find it and what the potential of it is.
In Gatwick, the custody suite is where suspected smugglers are welcomed back into the UK. It's a significant seizure, but Calvin's job now is to make sure everyone involved in the importation is identified and prosecuted.
What are you doing?
Right, sit down, just sit down. What we'll do is we'll let the custody officer know you're here, okay?
Okay.
And then he'll come and see you and explain your legal rights. Okay? Sit down now. Ah. Okay, again.
Intercepted Green Channel, North Terminal.
North Terminal. And opened a blue suitcase, which he did. Unzipped it, found it to contain foam. Under the foam with tape back packages, which I believe to be controlled drugs.
11:38.
Cell number 2. Before you do, you can take your shoes off and leave them outside and your belt. I'll get you. You've got a blanket, might be. You take your shoes off them. Just leave them outside here. Good. Do you want any drink of water or anything? No. Sure? Okay. You can't smoke here, I'm afraid. And the name on this bag relates to the female. So that will tie her into this bag as well as him.
It's unclear who's involved, so the female passenger must also be kept in custody.
But it looks like there could be controlled drugs in one of the bags. Do you understand it? Sorry?
You know what drug it is?
No, I don't know yet. They will find out when they do, they'll let me know. let you know. We just suspected that they are drugs at the moment.
Calvin suspects the packages contain cannabis. And the smell is unmistakable.
We check them all just to make sure they all are cannabis rather than we've had concealed ones before where some are being cannabis and some being cocaine.
They do all contain cannabis.
And the weight of the packages is 20.63 kilos.
It's a huge amount of drugs off the streets. Over 1,000 kilos of cocaine is seized by customs in the UK each year, and Gatwick is a prime point of entry. Sniffer dogs are used on the front line in this fight against Class A smugglers.
He looks for cocaine and heroin, so he's a Class A drugs dog. Trace smells or large amounts of that kind of scent, that's what he goes for.
This passenger was stopped by immigration officers and has now been brought into customs to be searched. Sniffer dog Rossi picks up a scent from one of his bags and gives the signal to the officers. But picking up a scent isn't enough. Officers must find the drugs before someone can be charged.
UK Customs, okay. Is that your bag, yeah? Who paid for your ticket?
Yeah, I paid it, but
Someone booked it for you, but you gave them the money, yeah? And how do you know this person? How do you know the person who booked it?
He's a close friend.
It's a close friend.
He's nervous and his story sounds suspicious.
Just take a swab of your bag, your things. It tells me whether or not you've been in contact with drugs at all, okay? Okay, if you just bear with me a sec again. Basically, you swab the bag and we have two machines and they tell you whether or not the bag's been contaminated with drugs. Like, it's given a reading now showing that it's picked up particles of cocaine. Could indicate that, one, that they could be a user. At some point there's been drugs within the bag. There's stuff there now or stuff on their person. Obviously you've got to go down every avenue and rule out every avenue. I've got a reading for cocaine from your bag and from your clothes and from your laptop bag. Okay, can I just ask, do you use at all? Do you use cocaine at all? Have you used cocaine in Trinidad? No, okay.
Finding nothing in the bag, Alex requests authority for a body search.
Can I have a request for an SOP, please? That's been authorised, that's fine. I give him my reasons, gave him 4 reasons. Why? Nervous demur, eyeing track reading, dog indication, and he's got very little luggage for 2 weeks stay. What I'm going to do now is take him into the search room and conduct a search. Okay, I'm not going to touch any skin, okay? Got no need to, obviously I can see. If I can just ask you to place your arms out for me, put your palms up into the air, okay? Please don't make any sudden movement. I'm going to do one side at a time. I will be going into your groin at some point, okay? But I will make you aware when I do that. Okay, again, I'm going into your groin. Okay, if you want to take a seat for me, please.
But smugglers don't only carry drugs on their bodies.
We swabbed the inside of the shoes because obviously you have swallowers who come into the UK with packages inside them. Packages give out like sweat and they go into your pores and you sweat through the bottom of your feet. So it can give a reading to say that there's possibly packages inside. So it's another area that we test.
It's another frustrating result for Alex, but this man's troubles are far from over.
Okay, if you'd just like to wait by the bench for me. Back to immigration now, yeah, and then they'll make a decision whether they land him from there, but from our side, we're happy. So, if you got disappointed on every one person you stopped, you'd be extremely disappointed and you'd probably lose the enthusiasm to keep looking. So you just get back out there and start again. Stop another passenger.
Customs officers in Dover have an entirely different threat to deal with. Thousands of trucks a day pass through the freight lanes, and the detection teams work round the clock to try and spot which ones may have something to hide.
One just gone over the top. There it is. I've never seen an unmarked one.
The intelligence hub selects most targets, but it's experience which has alerted Richard to this truck, and he decides it's worth searching.
Tyres in a fridge. I've never seen an unmarked fridge on an Omega Pills no unit before. Never. Especially with tyres in.
Smugglers often use awkward loads like tyres as cover, and so customs have developed X-ray machines big enough to scan an entire truck.
So we might end up scanning it. That's a brand spanking new fridge, and that's not a refrigerated load. A little bit odd.
The truck's under pressure to deliver, so this Polish driver isn't happy to learn his truck will have to be scanned. If it finds anything suspicious, it may have to be offloaded, which the driver's company will have to pay for.
They get a little bit aggy about it. They don't like the fact we do that.
The X-ray picks up an anomaly. There looks like there may be a secret compartment hidden in the floor. Richard needs to find out what it is, but he doesn't want to cost the driver money if he can avoid it.
No, I think it's in the floor.
Is it the floor? Yeah.
But what is it?
I think it's ribs.
I think we've got to make a decision as to whether this is worth offloading or not.
The team are all highly trained mechanics, so Richard decides to try to access the suspicious area from underneath. Customs officers also take on gangs involved in carousel fraud, which steal money from the VAT system. It works like this. Criminals set up fake companies to import high-value goods VAT-free. The goods get exported back out to fake companies in Europe, at which point VAT is reclaimed. These shipments get stamped at the border, but then simply turn round and come back into the UK. The same goods go in and out of the country again and again. In 2001, a man by the name of Ray Cox was at the centre of a carousel fraud so massive, it would take the next 6 years to bring him to justice.
By looking at him and financial profiling of Ray Cox, we basically determined that in a space of 3 years he'd gone from being a pallet repairer to a multi-millionaire. He became a major thorn in the side of attacking the UK's VAT system, and we embarked on what became an 8-month-long surveillance operation against Raymond Cox to identify those he was associating with, those he was trading with. We effectively identified a total of 7 people. They were just average people, so they weren't particularly well-educated people, and certainly not with a business background.
Day after day, the surveillance team looked on as the fraud increased. Cox and his 6 accomplices gradually lost control. The goods were going round and round on the carousel so fast, they forgot who was selling what to who.
They became blasé, and as often you see within fraudulent activities, they did get greedy. It's too much of a good thing.
In May 2002, it culminated in a meeting at the Trafford Centre in Manchester at a restaurant called Tiggy's about keeping the fraud on track. And of course, they were unaware that they were under surveillance at the time.
The surveillance team tracked all the suspects to the meeting and captured it all on film.
Whereupon we were all able to get inside, in effect get into the CCTV control room for the Trafford Centre, zoom in and record the whole meeting, a surveillance officer's dream.
With the gang making around £10 million a week from the fraud, tensions were clearly running high.
The meeting at the Trafford Centre was the first time that they'd actually all been filmed together. Come the end of the meeting, when the paperwork appeared to be sorted out, they all got up and it was very jovial, much backslapping, hugging, as if there were no problems.
But in fact, their problems were about to get a lot worse. The officers had decided enough was enough.
On the morning of the 8th of July 2002, the carousel, the conspiracy was taken out.
The 217 fake companies had stolen over £180 million, and it took 4 years to sift through the mountains of paperwork. The 9-month trial found 6 of the 7 guilty as charged, who all received at least 5 years in prison. Seen as the organiser, Cox received the heaviest sentence.
Raymond Cox, who was the principal, received a 12.5-year prison sentence. It was a very rewarding result for the effort that had been put in, and the signal to the criminal fraternity as a whole that we are going to take these frauds seriously, and you do get similar sentences to what you can get in major drug cases.
Back in Dover, however, a lengthy search has found nothing.
I think you just got to use a bit of common sense, haven't you? So at the end of the day, are we going to charge him 150 quid to offload it and find nothing, or do we just make a judgment?
Pierwszy raz na Anglii samochód jest i pewnie dlatego kontrol. Skoro muszą, to muszą.
Richard decides the truck doesn't need to be offloaded. and the happy driver can carry on and deliver his load. But on the bay next door, a white van has been pulled, and this time it's a hit. The van's full of cigarettes destined for the UK's black market, but not anymore. The drivers have been arrested and taken into custody.
They stopped the vehicle, questioned them, and whilst they questioned the driver, they went in the load and examined the load, and on opening a couple of boxes in one of the pallets, detected large quantities of cigarettes.
It's a serious crime, but their efforts to avoid detection aren't quite so easy to take seriously.
Obviously, it's failed. Rather flimsy design in a vain hope that we wouldn't detect these, but it's kind of laughable. But aluminium trays, I don't know whether they were hoping our X-ray eyes wouldn't go through them, or it just seems, you know, at the end of the day, it's a cardboard box with cigarettes in it, and we were going to find them. So.
In just one van load, the officers have seized over 1 million illegal cigarettes. The cannabis found in Gatwick was valued at £55,000. The man has since pleaded guilty. The female passenger pleaded not guilty and will stand trial soon. Customs officers are always on high alert for bootleggers using cheap flights to bring in tobacco to sell illegally on the UK's booming black market. In Bristol, officers have received intelligence that a known bootlegger is returning from Malaga in a group of 4. The main target had over 26 kilos of tobacco seized only 2 weeks ago. Will he be mad enough to try again?
Oh, there we go. Tobacco. Lots of it.
The X-ray has found 4 bags full of tobacco. Now it's up to Anne and the team to stop and question the passengers and prove that the tobacco is not for their own personal use. Bootleggers come in all shapes and sizes. This time it's a retired couple who pick up 3 of the 4 suspect bags and then split from the group. They almost make it through the channels, but Anne closes in.
Is it only the 2 of you? Yeah.
The 3 holdalls are stacked with tobacco. The main target has slipped through empty-handed, but the final passenger in the group isn't so lucky. Her bag contains 30 kilos of tobacco, 10 times the guidelines. The couple have another 57 kilos. Altogether, an amount like this is a criminal matter. No wonder they're pretending not to know each other.
Okay, I'm just going to do a couple of checks on your passport a minute.
They're saying they're travelling just together, don't they?
Yeah.
Get them to say that again. She's saying she's travelling on her own. They're in a group. They're together.
Yes.
They got 57 kilos between them.
Isn't that arrestable?
Could be. Only if we can tie them in together.
Tying the passengers to each other proves a little easier than Anne and Joe expected.
Are you together, or do you know each other?
Well, we've come together.
Are you travelling together? You're travelling together, okay. They've all just admitted that they're travelling together because they were talking to each other.
Did they say that initially when you stopped?
No, he lied.
Travelling by himself.
Yeah. So obviously I don't believe that this sort of amount can be for your own personal use.
Believe that.
The sheer amount that you've brought in.
I've never been in trouble with the police, never been in trouble with the customs. We smoke tobacco, and that is for our use.
They have enough tobacco to last 14 years, but it was split between 3 passengers, so it won't be treated as criminal. But they will now be interviewed to decide the fate of the tobacco.
I do not believe for 1 minute that that is for their own personal use. Even if they were smoking, 100 cigarettes a day.
He seems pretty adamant that he's done nothing wrong, and
that's right.
That's the most I've seen come through the airport in the last couple of years, I must say.
At this point, most bootleggers simply admit defeat and abandon their goods. But this passenger decides he won't go down without a fight. In Gatwick, sniffer dog Rossi and his handler Claire are targeting another Spanish flight, this time for Class A drugs. Each dog has only one handler, and their close bond means that Claire knows when Rossi picks up even a hint of drugs.
They want to stand still for a second,
passenger is intercepted and seems very nervous. But Andy's bag search finds nothing.
What's that? Just a charm. Yeah.
Not convinced, Andy swabs the bag for drugs and picks up a massive hit for cocaine.
Quick chat with him. He's very, very nervous. And taking an iron track off there, got a hit of 4, so I'm going to get an SOP in him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's got something on him.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Okay.
It seems Rossi and Claire were right. So Andy confronts the passenger with the evidence.
It's a drugs dog. I've spoken to you. You seem very nervous, okay? I've taken a swab, as I explained to you, from your baggage, and I've got a very high hit for traces of cocaine. So what I want to do is search you to make sure you have nothing on you.
No problem, sir.
Okay, you
No
understand
problem,
that?
sir. Yes, yes, no
okay.
problem.
Do you have
no
any
worry.
objections to that?
Pardon,
You have
sir?
any objection? Any problem with that?
No, you
okay,
can check
good.
me everything you want.
Okay. Would you like to come this way?
The passenger is playing innocent, but the search of person will prove if he's telling the truth. Back in Bristol, Ant's preparing for a fight with the passengers caught with 87 kilos of tobacco. They have enough tobacco to last a heavily addicted smoker 14 years, but neither have yet asked for a cigarette.
You said that I took an hour to write up my notebook.
No, you left us outside waiting for
Yeah, you actually said that I took an hour to write up my notebook. That were your
I said, my specific words were, you left us sitting out there for an hour in the freezing cold.
Well,
I
you
did
went
not
to write
say, but don't, let's get it straight.
Okay, well,
Little
I'll tell
girl,
you what.
if you're
no,
going to write,
don't try and intimidate me.
You are intimidating me.
No,
Little
not
girl,
at all.
you write
I've
it
just been
properly.
straight with you.
You do your job properly, or don't do it at all. Bring somebody else
Look,
in.
if you're going to take this attitude,
Yes.
I'm not going to interview you. I'll invite you back at a different date
No,
when you calm
you
down.
come to my house and interview me. If you
No,
invite me
that
back.
doesn't happen.
Well, you
Sorry.
bring somebody else then.
Until you're prepared to speak to me in a
Well,
proper
don't
manner,
miss
I
my
won't
husband.
deal with you.
What planet are you on, for goodness sake? You people, get to the dock, stop the people coming in. Do your job.
Okay.
You know, don't do the little end. You're like policemen who pick people up for parking. Catch the criminals. We're not criminals.
Well, actually, it's a very large quantity of cigarettes.
Wait, no, it's tobacco. You want to get that right as well. It is not a large quantity for somebody that smokes all the time. Two people. Really? You smoke, do you?
It's a large quantity.
Do you smoke, do you? No, it is. Because you're telling me it's a large quantity. I'm saying, you do smoke.
No,
you're not qualified to judge, are you?
I am, because
No, you're not. Bring somebody in that's qualified to judge. You don't smoke. You don't know how much tobacco goes in a rollie, do you?
Yes.
You haven't got a clue.
Well, look.
Right. So anyway, go away. Bring the little girl back with what I've just said.
No, you don't speak to us like that.
Why not? This is disgraceful, and it will not end here, I can tell you. We are not criminals. You are treating us like criminals.
Picking out the criminals amongst the innocent passengers is a skill that comes only from experience. And customs officers in Gatwick have seen it all when it comes to the risks smugglers will take to make money from drugs. One smuggler that stands out from all the rest is Paul Brady.
Well, when I stopped Mr. Brady in the Green Channel, I examined his baggage and found really nothing of customs interest at all. But there was something about him that I wasn't satisfied with. And generally, if somebody hasn't got anything in their baggage of customs interest, then they may have smuggled it elsewhere. So Mr. Brady was then taken to a private room and he was searched.
The body search found nothing, so suspicions now centred on what Brady might have hidden inside his body.
A sample of urine was taken from him and tested on our machine at Gatwick, and the result indicated the presence of cocaine inside of his body. And I then arrested him on suspicion of importing a controlled drug into the UK, concealed internally.
Officers wanted to X-ray Brady to prove he'd swallowed packages of cocaine, but he refused. Instead, he was detained in a Gatwick custody cell while officers waited for the evidence to emerge. Brady had begun a waiting game that would go down in customs history.
He was refusing to eat any food. He refused to drink any drinks that we provided to him unless it was a can of Coke which he could open himself, and that's all he would do. And of course this went on and on.
Without food, it soon became a week without him going to the toilet. But officers had Brady under 24-hour surveillance to ensure none of the vital evidence was missed.
We had to have grounds to keep him in our custody when we had to go in front of the magistrate every 7 days. One of the things we did was to iron scan his suit, and this indicated whether we still may have the cocaine level was actually going up, which it was.
After 3 weeks, and with drugs seeping into his system, they began to fear for Brady's life. But he refused to give in.
It would only take a very small amount to actually kill the person outright, so it's a dangerous thing to do anyway.
After a staggering 48 days of defiance, it was the smell of the custody officer's lunch which finally forced Brady to crack.
After 48 days, I was actually off shift and I was at home, and I had a call from my main manager at Gatwick, who telephoned me to said yes, he's produced. So it was quite an emotional time, and I still feel quite emotional talking about it now. So it was sort of relief.
Consuming his first meal for 7 weeks, the officers wouldn't have to wait long to get their hands on the evidence.
And it just gave in completely, so he must have been absolutely starving, but obviously the body couldn't take it. And I had to sit with him along with my colleagues to recover the remaining packages from his body.
The stubbornness of Brady was beaten only by the determination of the officers at Gatwick.
I mean, give him his due, he gave it a good try, didn't he? And he pleaded the only thing he could do best, which was to plead guilty at Croydon Crown Court, where the judge gave him the sentence of 5 years. And that's something I'm proud of, you know, so it was good.
In Gatwick, Andy's search of person has identified the cause of the positive cocaine hit. The man has confessed to using cocaine whilst in Spain.
So you say the reason for the high reading that we got here was because you had a couple of lines of coke yesterday?
Oh, okay.
Yeah? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite high. You use it quite regularly?
No, not very much actually. Not very much.
Having confessed to using cocaine abroad, the man's now trying to avoid trouble.
Came up with a very high reading for cocaine. When I put that to him, just inside the room there, why that would be, he said, well, he had a couple of lines of coke yesterday with his girlfriend, which would do the trick. So stripped him off, nothing there at all, and gradually calmed down once he realised that that was what we were going to do. So
no guilt, yeah?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye-bye.
The high reading was from personal use, so a disappointed Andy has to let him go.
So nothing today, maybe next time.
Customs ship Searcher has tracked a yacht sailing towards the southwest coast of England. Within the 12-mile limit, any vessel is a potential smuggler, and customs officers have the power to board and search.
This is the 6 miles. You can see that the target vessel that we're interested in is just off the 6-mile limit, so he's well within the 12.
What's using the plate?
The cutter launches the high-speed rib team from the stern, giving the yacht no time to hide any goods on board or jettison any drugs into the sea. The boarding team don't need the skipper's permission, but he seems unaware of their powers.
Customs, sir, we're just going to pop on board for a second.
Come on board when I get back to port.
When we get back to port, we've actually got to come on board now, sir.
Pardon?
We're coming on board now, sir. How long have you been over in the Scillies?
2 days.
2 days.
I can hear the rib crew saying they're going to take some swabs on board the vessel, some iron track swabs, and then they're going to bring them back to the cutter, and we can test to see if there's any traces of narcotics or explosives on the yacht.
To avoid upsetting innocent sailors as much as possible, the drug swabs quickly identify any wrongdoing. The man's initial attitude may be a good sign of a smuggler, but the swabs will be the ultimate test.
If he's got anything on his hands, that will have moved onto the tiller. Nothing there. The swabs are negative, and there's no trace of any drugs on that particular boat. All negative. Nice, clean yacht.
Fair dues. Let's get the boys back in then.
Quickly exonerating the innocent is as important as arresting the guilty, and this sailor is free to continue his journey. And after the 12-hour shift, the cutter's searcher returns to port. Meanwhile, in Gatwick, police have arrested a man as he stepped off a flight from the Caribbean. His problems get worse when the officers bring him through customs.
He's dressed very smartly. Why is he wearing a suit?
Haven't found that out yet.
Was he sitting in economy or was he flying Virgin upper class? Why did he wear a suit? No one else in the flight's wearing a suit.
But, we'll find out. We'll ask him a few questions. Well, what's happened is that the police had warrants, outstanding warrants for this man. And as soon as he came off the plane, they arrested him at that stage. And they've brought him up here. And as the flight is one which has brought previous jobs to us, shall we say, they asked us if we wanted to have a look through his luggage. And the obvious thing is that given the risk of drugs coming in from there, we said yes. So we've gone through the luggage, and what we want to do now is just to make sure he's got no drugs on his person.
Many smugglers try hard to look innocent, and Chris asks permission to do a body search.
He's arrived on a flight from Montego Bay. And as you can see, he's probably the most smartly dressed guy on the flight, dressed in a suit, which is ostensibly a holiday destination. It seems as though he's got various layers on as well. Yeah. So we just want to rub him down, make sure there's nothing under all those layers.
That's fine, Chris. Yeah, 8:15.
Cheers. Okay, if you come this way.
Out with us as well? Stay with him. Right, if you can follow us.
Okay.
Catching drug smugglers is a daily occurrence at Gatwick, and officers find packages in a variety of places. The strip search is as uninvasive as possible, but it's an uncomfortable experience, especially when Jeff discovers the initial reason for the man's arrest.
He's actually wanted for a driving offence, but you know, we have to make sure 100% certain. So we did a quick search and nothing was found, so we've handed him back to the police. He's been rearrested and taken back down to the station.
This man isn't a smuggler and leaves cooperatively with the police. Meanwhile, in Bristol, 3 passengers have been caught with 87 kilos of tobacco, but they're not going quietly.
You have treated us really badly, really badly, like we've done something wrong.
Until you're prepared to speak to me in a proper manner, I won't deal with you.
It's the biggest haul the team have seen in years, but the man is adamant it's not being brought in to sell on the black market. Anne's decided to interview the man to see if he's telling the truth. If not, the £11,000 worth of tobacco will all be seized and destroyed.
How much do you smoke a week on average?
So, 2-3 packs a day, so...
2 or 3 50-gram packs?
Yeah, generally 2.
Okay. How many cigarettes do you tend to make from one 50-gram pouch of tobacco? What could you get?
30.
Okay. At one 50-gram pouch, on a good day, he gets 20 out of it. Okay, sorry. He would expect those goods to last him 9 to 10 months.
All right, give him the benefit of the doubt. 30 kilos are for him.
Yeah.
That's 600 pouches, and he reckons 10 months.
Yeah, definitely not longer than a year. Because he bought the same amount last year. And
That means he's going to be smoking 8.5 pouches a week. Totally and utterly ridiculous.
Oh, he says he smokes 2 pouches a day. 2 to 3 pouches a day.
A day?
The only thing I haven't asked is about rolling. Because are we allowed to ask that? Are we?
What do you mean? Getting to roll what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to roll one of these for me.
Really? I'm
Yeah.
not playing any silly games.
Well, you've said that you can roll.
Look, I've been very good. I've played the game.
Yeah,
You've
but
asked
I'm not
all the
asking.
questions. You've asked, and if you really think at 65 years old I haven't smoked all my life, I'm now going to play a silly game.
I'm asking you to roll one cigarette.
No way. I'm not being silly. No way. That's insulting.
The 2 other passengers have had their goods seized. And now the moment of truth. Anne has to decide if the angry passenger gets to keep his tobacco, and he's not going to be happy.
I've looked over what has been said today, and you failed to satisfy me that the tobacco is for your own use for the following reasons. I'll give you the reasons. One, the excessive quantity is actually 9 times over the guideline of what you are supposed to bring in from an...
Not what I'm supposed to smoke, yeah, fine. When you say guideline...
Yeah, there is a guideline of 3,000...
It's a guideline.
Yeah, but it's still 9... I'm giving you my... I'm not going to argue about it. I'm giving you my reasons. Consumption, 3 pouches a day is grossly excessive.
Right, yeah, okay, go on. Right, you're going to tell me what to
You've got no smoking paraphernalia at all.
Correct.
You refuse to roll a cigarette for no reason.
Correct. Not for no reason. I made it clear
it's not
to you
credible.
that I'm not going to demonstrate.
Okay, fine. You refuse to
drink a cup of tea.
I didn't ask you
a bottle of wine.
drink
No,
a
I'm
cup of
telling
tea.
you that. You asked me to do something just as benign.
Look, can you just listen, please?
Just sign it, please, and we can get to the court.
Right. It's not credible to import this quantity when travelling again in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Inconsistencies in your account. You actually said...
Inconsistencies in my account?
Just let me finish,
yeah, go
right?
On, let's hear it.
You actually said that on the same flight, your son and a female friend of his travelled, whereas your wife told Mr. Hanlon that nobody else that you knew travelled. That is the point. That is the point.
If we were travelling on
We're not going to...
When you were being questioned. Did they ask you if you're travelling on our own? Yeah, well, we are.
Well, you're not because you know other...
Well, no, I knew another lady I was sitting beside.
That Mrs. didn't know that her own son was also on the flight?
What I'm saying to you is, we are travelling on our own. That's what my wife said. Anyway, get to it.
It's also not credible to get only 20, or 30 or even 40 cigarettes from a 50-gram pouch of tobacco.
Right then.
Generally, you would get at least 80 to 100 cigarettes out of...
Not if you roll them in a bag.
What, so are you suggesting that you roll them...
I'm not suggesting anything. Let's go to court and have my solicitor run rings round you.
If you could sign. Look, you need to sign the date as well.
Sign the date. You put the date. You don't
Look, I'm not going to argue with you about sign.
I'm just trying to get you to behave correctly.
I don't think I need you to teach me how to do that.
Somebody needs to teach you.
I could say the same about you.
Anne's ordeal is finally over.
He was trying to intimidate me, I think perhaps because he thought I was a girl, like he was calling me little girl and stuff and waving his finger in my face. But that doesn't intimidate me. He was just nitpicking at things really because he knew that he hadn't got a leg to stand on.
The passengers walk away empty-handed, having lost 87 kilos, which will now all be destroyed. The angry man in Bristol made an official complaint about his treatment and is still planning to fight the seizure in court.